Last video, we made a castle tower together, unlocking the power of the symmetry mirror function with alpha mask stamps. Then we saved the model to our library so we can pull it up whenever we need it. Today you're going to see why I split this castle tutorial up into two separate videos as we make our way for our stone arch gate and easily add some other parts and finishing details. And we're going to see two different ways to do it, one being my personal preference, and you'll see why that is. And as always, if you are brand new to this content, go ahead and watch it first and then revisit my other short tutorials explaining everything in detail from the very beginning. And I'll have the playlist linked in the description of this video, along with all of the tools that I recommend and am currently using, along with the app that I'm showing you here. And you can always watch this video and have it playing in the background as you sculpt in Shapelab on your headset. Open up scene mode and create a new shape. We're going to make a rectangular block and increase the polygons to about this much. I have my brick alpha mask that I made selected in the standard tool, and I have the stamp mode activated just like when we made the tower. I had the front faces only mode selected because I don't want the bricks wrapping around and creating problems on the sides of the wall too much. This is optional though, and you're probably still gonna have to clean it up regardless. I'll show you a really easy way to clean up all the sides at the end. In the secret menu, I have limited the rotation angle to 90 degrees to keep the bricks applied as upright as possible, making it much easier to line them up like you see here. And just a quick reminder, if you want to apply the same bricks on both sides at the same time, remember to turn on your symmetry for the correct axis in order to do so. Now let's add a cylinder and skew it so it looks like an oval but not too narrow. Position it so the wall's bottom cuts about halfway through the cylinder's midline. Hit the Y button on the left controller to open up the transform tool and size up that arch until it looks just right. In order for this to work with the wall, we need to increase the polygons on the oval as well. Now, simply Boolean subtract the first cylinder from the wall. If you get errors like this, it means you need to either increase the number of polygons on the arch or on the cylinder itself. You also may need to slightly reposition or rescale either of the two. Start with the arch. The archway is ready for some block details. The first method is the easier method of the two and is really going to leave you with that clean, simple, cartoonish model look if that's what you're going for. Notice we have some broken polygons here on the bottom, but like I said, we're going to clean that up later. Bring up the Create Shape menu and whip up a rounded cube, like we did in the other tutorials. Let's add some taper to it, as this is going to be our keystone that we put at the top in the middle of the arch. I still have my 90 degrees snap rotation setting on. Pop it in and center it using the context menu and reposition it vertically. When it looks right, use the transform tool to stretch this wedge out so it is equally visible on both sides of the wall. Here you can see I renamed the wedge as Keystone. Now let's clone it. You can see the same name Keystone with a 001 added to the end. Carefully drag this and rotate it into position. Scale it down a bit so the first keystone really stands out. Make small adjustments to both of them until you really like what you see. Now give it a whirl and see how clean and balanced both sides are already starting to look. Now simply add less tapered, rounded blocks along the side until you reach the arch bottom. Make one of the blocks level with the horizontal axis. Select it and Boolean union the other blocks to it one at a time. We can open up the context menu and select the mirror symmetry tool and create a mirror image of these stones on the other side. If we select the wall object again, we can get rid of these edges poking out using the smooth tool. This looks pretty good. Now we can select our keystone and we can Boolean union each side of our arch to it, creating one solid piece. Now it's time to put it all together. Select the wall and the arch blocks and Boolean union them together. Now it's time to clean the top, bottom, and the sides. We can do this really easily, like in the previous tutorials. Simply move the blocks into position and Boolean subtract them from the arch wall. You can see how nice and clean the surfaces look now. This will make it much easier for other objects to interact with our arch walls when we put it together with things like the towers. I really like the way that this turned out. I've done this a few times and every time I do it, I always like the way it looks. And if you want, you can always go back into the finished model and smooth over any areas that you think might give you issues, especially when 3D printing. If the smooth tool doesn't completely solve your issues, use the regularize tool to a large size, then smooth it over. And remember, you can always add details to it if that's what you want to do. However, I always recommend saving your basic models first. You can do this by adding it to the stamp and object library, and you can even export it as an STL or object file. So that wraps up method 1 of creating our arch brick castle style wall. Let's move on to the second method using the alpha mask. Create the cylinder for your arch like in the first method. We can clone our cylinder and then use the transform widget to scale it and shape it to the size that we need. The clone cylinder should be stretched so that it extends through the middle of the bigger original cylinder. Now Boolean union the original larger cylinder to the brick wall. Now Boolean subtract the smaller, skinnier cylinder in the middle from that new combined shape. This should leave you with an oval-shaped ring. It's time to apply our alpha mask. Just like in the first method, we're going to be making a keystone at the top in the center. In order to do this, I'm going to be using a wedge silhouette alpha mask that I made, which you can find on my Patreon, along with some other alpha masks and other useful objects and stamps that you can use for your castle build. Adjust your strength and fall off settings as needed. Now add that keystone shape to the top middle. Remember, the great thing about this method is you have a lot more freedom to add more realistic blocks, making asymmetrical shapes. Asymmetry looks more natural and real. Now this is all stuff we learned in the previous videos, so you should be a pro at it now. If not, go back and rewatch those videos. Boolean subtract big giant cubes from the top, bottom, and the sides to clean it up, just like in method 1. It looks kind of weird without any detail under the arch, so let's go ahead and use one of my alpha masks to add some nice uniform blocky stones. I use a larger scale regularize tool and then I shrink it down to divide those polygons a little bit more. This will help us to get the detail we're looking for. Wow, that's pretty sick. So just like the previous tutorials, there's only one thing left to do. Leave it as it is, or add more detail with the other alpha mask stamps. You can either add or subtract detail. It's gonna look great. If you're not getting the detail that you need, either increase the strength and decrease the fall off for your alpha mask tools, or bump up the polygons. If you added your tower castle that we covered in the last video to your library or your stamps, simply pop that in there. Watch what you could do when you turn on the symmetry tool. Pretty cool, huh? Now I'm on the standalone headset version, which I have linked in the description of the video. There's also a PC version, which can handle much more polygons than the standalone version, obviously. What good is a castle scene without some props? I made 24 models that you can scale, customize, and litter all over your castle to make it look like the ruins of some epic battle. You can print these for your wargaming miniatures or add quick details to your own 3D modeled fantasy diorama. We covered both approaches to making legit basic castle scenery that you can 3D print. I like the simplicity and control I have when adding individual shapes with the first method, but you cannot dismiss the quality of detail and the speed that you get from method 2. I've been keeping a secret from you. My personal choice is to use both. We can control the block object placement with precision and then apply our block texture for maximum detail. So free up that mind space and make more time for actually enjoying your hobby by grabbing the medieval castle pack so you can focus on the bigger picture. Here are a few of the models I 3D printed. I did it in this super durable ABS-like resin, which helps reduce breakage when you accidentally drop your miniature artwork on the floor. And of course, these can also be printed in the less messy FDM style printers as well. I printed these walls in resin, hollowing them out first and then leaving drain holes. It worked pretty good. I think next time I would hollow them out and then chop off the bottoms. Just some support nubs that can be easily sanded from under the arch. Let's see the other stuff printed at varying scales. You can print the towers and the walls separately so you can move them around however you like. Or you can combine them in your modeling app or slicer for a nice solid shape. The knight helmet was especially challenging to design. See how small I got it in resin? Here's a medieval fire pit with some fire you can paint. It's 2 parts, but they print well together. Here's a mace I made, which was pretty fun to design. My favorite part is the handle grip I made. The Viking helmet is to blame for the 24 props. Once I designed that one, I just couldn't stop. I would never want to swing nor get hit by this ball and chain flail. Here's an axe for you to swing. A small sword, scaled up small sword. There's a larger sword in the pack. Check out how flexible this durable resin is. I have it linked in the description for you. I stocked up on tons of it last year. Good thing. Who knows where these prices are going to be next month. If I were you, I would not wait. I'd grab a couple bottles. Here is a kettle helmet. This is the stretched version. Here's a knight helmet again. I have hollowed it out, and I also have a solid version for you. I went back and thickened up the walls after this print. The wood circular shield is probably the most satisfying to look at and to handle. I carved the wood grain by hand, but I also have an alpha mask that you can just stamp onto the shield if you want. I was surprised the bow printed with the string intact all in one piece. If you work on a smaller scale, just chop off the string in your modeling app and then glue a string separately, which is what I've seen a lot of minis do. What's better than this castle wall? A mini castle wall. Just look how high resolution it turned out, even with this medium detail resin. Here's a small tower I printed, and I realized it would be better to print one without any bottom to save time and money, and you can see it kind of warped on the bottom. So that's what I did on the big one. Check out how flexible this is. I love this resin, very durable. When you download the Medieval Castle Pack, there's an instruction manual that illustrates and details how you can use this, specifically in Shapelab, but you can use it in any 3D modeling app that you need. That's nearly 40 assets ready to use, making your sculpting experience a little bit easier. I never thought I would be able to make anything like this, but I've continued to make real sculptures in Shapelab and 3D printed them into the real world. Some of them useful, some of them decorative, some of them both. And it has given me the confidence to earn real money in the real world, doing real sculptures in front of live audiences. Check out my Instagram. You can see my progression in the last 3 years of seasonal pumpkin work alone. I don't do it all year. I only do it for 1 month of the year. And you can see how I've gotten so much better. And that's all thanks to VR 3D modeling and apps like Shapelab. And that's why I'm so bullish on the future of VR modeling. Again, I have the alpha masks and all of these stamps and objects that you see here, all wrapped up nicely in a bow for you over on my Patreon. And if you need a refresher, make sure to go back and rewatch any of my previous tutorials to get you back up to speed. We are just getting started. See you in the next video.